when you turn on YouTube or whatever, Facebook, and you hear about all these people being abused in prison, yeah, by other people pulling them into the cells and all that crap. I've only seen it once or twice, yeah, but not like that, yeah. Um, you got to remember, yeah, there's quite a lot of people that go in prison with nothing, with not a penny. You know, they just got nothing, so they got to survive. And the only way to survive in prison when you've got nothing is to make yourself busy to people that have got things and maybe ask them, look, mate, can I do your tea for you? Can I make your bed for you? Can I make you do sandwiches for you? Can I do your dinner for you? And things like that. And then people go, yeah. It's up to that individual person if he wants to do other favours for that person, right? And it happens. It happens 24/7. But as far as people being pulled in cells and something like that happening to them, I don't really see it. I see it in Albany when I was in Albany with a guy called Janice, you know, and Janice was a woman in a way, yeah. Eye makeup, you know, little pair of little breasts, everything you could possibly want out of a woman. That was a woman, but it had a three-piece suite down there. But other than that, that's what it was. I worked in the kitchen, and when she come for a job in the kitchen, the first job you do in the kitchen is a wash-up, you know. And she didn't do a wash-up at all, or he didn't do a wash-up. He went straight into the veg counter, doing the veg, helping out, doing the veg, like a woman does. And the PO was an old Matlow. And Matlow is a Navy. But they said that Matlows are all a bit funny. Seriously, yeah. So the PO used to take Janice into his office and shut the door and pull the blinds down all round, yeah, and doing sorts of things to Janice. Janice would come out, not letting you know anything, maybe just wiped her mouth or whatever and walked on, yeah, and then do her little bits and pieces. Go up the wing, say to the PO, can you hit up the wing? And shoot up the wing, do what it's got to do, then come back. But Janice, because it was that way inclined, right, up on the wing, Janice used to earn a lot of money because Janice used to do favours. Guys was going to sell, give it an ounce or half an ounce or whatever, tins of tuna or mackerel, pineapples or whatever it wanted, yeah, for whatever it give you. So there was loads of guys going out of this cell, do you know what I mean? Honestly, I'm not joking. But Janice, I was in the bakers, so my job was to every morning make the bread, do the rolls, yeah? And then after that, meat pies, whatever else had to be done, cakes and things like that, yeah? So in the morning, bread. Go to the prover, turn the prover on, and do the rolls, do the bread. Well, this guy, Peter, that's not his real name, was a butcher and a liberty taker geezer, right? That never really give much out away. And grabbed this Janice. This Janice was on the veg table, was next to the prover. Pulled this Janice into the prover and was taking liberties with it. I'm in the bakers. I'm going mad. So I goes in the prover. This thing's now got his trousers around his ankles, taking liberties. I went in there and smashed his geezer to pieces with roll trays and bashed it up really bad. I had a screw in the bakers called Peter Taylor. Not the same Peter Taylor, yeah? Mr. Taylor, nice guy. Used to buy jewellery off me and give me tobacco and other things to give people for it. It was a good little living. I was getting my little earner and all this. Taylor see this geezer. I was lucky in a way because this guy, Peter, worked in the butcher's shop, yeah? And if it had still got a job in the butcher's shop, it more likely stabbed me to death, like cut you right up, go in there one day and stab you up or plot up for you, yeah? So straight away, this geezer, Peter, was dragged out belled up, was on the bell, screws come down, dragged him out, and I don't think he was seen again. Yeah, he went down the block and he was shipped out. Yeah, but they're the ones you see. So I've seen ones like Jackie that was on C Wing with me, Jackie, Mary, Billy McGee, Janice, and Samantha that got burnt out on the fours, that burnt his cell out, yeah, on the fours. But there are some others in there that you don't really know, yeah. But I never see many people get hurt that way, get pulled into the cell. Only one more when I was in the scrubs. When I was in the scrubs, I was on the conveyor, yeah, and I see a guy come in the conveyor was like, was more that way than ever, right? Anyway, so this thing got upstairs and was pulled into a cell by someone. It was screaming, right? So I rushed up there, me and another guy that worked in there, rushed up there, and the guy's in the cell, but he can't slam the door. He's put the bolt across and he's got his thing in there taking liberties. So me and my mate went in there and bashed it up. I mean, we really bashed this thing up bad. You know, bashed him up, mate. You're taking liberties with this young boy, yeah? That's the only other time I've ever seen it. That's the only other time. People going, yeah, it goes on wife. It don't go on wife, mate, in there. It goes on. Of course it goes on. It goes on with people that ain't got nothing. It goes on with people that go into prison that haven't got a tanner. And when they go to the big prisons, like Albany, there's people in there that, the two Barrys, John and Parky Barry, they had guys in there all day long, making their beds, making their tea, making their sandwiches, going downstairs to cook their dinner and things like that, you know. But they were getting a lot of acid tabs, yeah, and things like that, you know. The acid, yeah. They was getting loads of that in. So that was their way of paying for it. But obviously there was other things going on more, of course there was, yeah. But I'm not, honestly, you hear about it all the time, people getting this, people getting that, but it ain't like that, mate. It ain't like that, you know. It really, really ain't like that. There's guys in prison that do that. There's guys in prison that do that. When they come to prison, they can't survive, and they do that, right? I see a guy come to prison in the 70s, and most of the guys that come in the 70s all had long hair, because that was the fashion, yeah, long hair. This guy come in, and it got done for an armed robbery, and it got nicked straight away, you know. With the armed robbery, it had a pole. It had a pole wrapped up in a blanket, and, you know, and then it got sussed out and got rushed, and anyway, still got done for armed robbery with an imitation gun, whatever was a pole, and got 7 years for this. 7 years, mate. So it'd been doing it quite a bit to get 7 years. When it come to Albany, it went into A Wing, and Terry Rouse was more or less giving it bits and pieces and things like that. But then it moved to C Wing. I ain't saying the names, but this thing went with someone to someone's cell, and this was supposed to be someone who was an armed robber. Went into someone's cell and come out with all sorts of t-shirts and fags and all sorts of different things. The next thing you see it, downstairs, cooking food and looking very, very feminine. You know what I mean? And you know straight away that one is doing what he's doing to survive in prison. There's a lot of it goes on to survive, but they don't get pulled in the cell and, you know, Paul Sykes, come on. That's what makes me sick about it, is about, you know, when they Paul Sykes. It don't happen that way, mate. There's no way Paul Sykes went into the YP wing, went into a cell, put the bolt across, right, and pulled someone's trousers down, stuck a Sun newspaper on his back and took liberties with the guy. The guy would be screaming like anything. You know, it isn't a joke, I shouldn't think, you know what I mean? I mean, come on. And the screws would be worried all over. It's all a lot lies. People make up lies. People make up big lies to pull someone down, yeah? And I don't think for 1 minute Paul Sykes was into that shit. You know what I mean? I don't think. If Paul Sykes was into that, he was into that with people that wanted that, yeah? That people that he could look after, give tobacco to, or give whatever to get his own way, yeah? Because as I told you before, there's loads in there that do that. Loads. There's loads. It's as if there are people now watching my YouTube, right, that are more like the people who was in there doing it in the first place. You know what I mean? Because they couldn't survive. They can't survive, and they got to do something to get their tobacco, get their food, everything, get their t-shirts, get their jeans, get everything. And to get all that, and their puff and all that, they got to do favours. That's prison. Bang, bang, rail. Nice one.